The first step to building brand awareness is to create that know, like, and trust feel. On today's episode, I'm going to walk you through how you can use podcasting to amplify your brand's authority. Stick around. Hola, I'm Yesenia Bocanegra, and I'm a photographer turned marketing strategist who took a leap of faith and moved 3,000 miles away from home with one camera and one heavy suitcase filled with dreams. In this show, I share a variety of tips, tactics, and candid conversations to help you grow and up-level your business with purpose and joy, one action item at a time. So get comfortable and let's get started. This is the Focus and Bloom podcast. Let's talk about podcasting. So podcasting is a really great tool to really help you build that authority and thought leadership in your area of expertise, because you can really expand on a variety of topics more than what you could on a typical Instagram or social media post. To help you get in that frame of mind where you get a little bit more insight of how podcasting is, I've got a couple of stats as to where is podcasting today, 2022. So in 2022, and this is from a recent study done by Buzzsprout in this year, in April of 2022, 62% of the population, 12 and over, have listened to podcasts, and roughly 78% are familiar with the medium. Over 1/3, 104 million Americans, listen to podcasts regularly. 43% of those aged 35 through 54 are monthly podcast listeners. 28% of Americans listen weekly, on the other hand. So while these are stats that are based in the US, overall podcast listenership outside the United States is increasing, one of which is within the Spanish-speaking community. So needless to say, there's more to come when it comes to podcasting. So let me walk you through 5 action items that you can do to use podcasts as a way to amplify your brand's authority. The number one is to niche down. And this is not exclusive to podcasting. This is in general. You really want to make sure that you are standing out with your own voice in your own market. And remember, there are so many content creators out there, so many creators, so many new businesses emerging every single day. You want to make sure that you want to stand out for all the good reasons. One of them being not just that you have great content, but that you are yourself and you are authentic to that and you're true to that. And that's one of the things that's going to help you stand out. So the more niche down you can be, the better, because again, you're going to be able to speak to a specific pinpoint problem that's going to help that specific person. Remember, you're talking to one person, not everybody. And when you make that impact within that person's life, that's when everything else, that's ripple effect, is going to start happening. Number 2, you want to incentivize your audience for tuning in on the podcast. So this is a really great opportunity to sort of get like an insider's approach to offering something extra, a reward for your listeners. One of the ways in which you can approach this is as you're approaching any sort of holiday season or a particular period where you're closer to launching, when you are doing a specific sale, when you're introducing a new service, or maybe you just want to touch base and sort of do a refresher. And this is a great opportunity for you to give that incentive to those who are listening. And one of the cool things about this is that it's not just a benefit for your audience that they get that perk, could be like a discount, or it could be an additional type of content, whatever that perk, whatever that incentive is. It's not just a benefit to your audience, but it's also a benefit to you as a content creator, business owner, because it helps you see how these specific incentives that you're launching through your podcast are performing. And then that could shine a light as to whether or not it's something that you can continue doing, or you should continue exploring more to see how that results in generating sales, generating leads, whatever that is, whatever your call to action, whatever your plan is in your overall marketing plan. Number 3, cross promotion by being featured in another podcast. So this doesn't mean that you need to go ahead and start creating your own podcast. Maybe that's something that you considered. Maybe that's something that you thought about and you said no. However, that doesn't mean that you cannot be a guest in other people's podcasts. So that's a really great way to cross-market, cross-network with a similar audience that you can also provide service to. And in that case, they could then discover you through that particular channel. One of the things that you want to keep in mind when you're cross-marketing or when you're really pitching yourself as a guest is that you want to present the host of that particular show what are the benefits, or what are you bringing to their audience, what benefit are you adding to their platform, so that then they'll see that you are an added value as a guest of their show. Number 4 is to drive more traffic to your website. And one of the ways that you can really maximize the value that you're putting out in a podcast episode is by repurposing it. Repurposing content can be done in a variety of ways, but one of the biggest and the most valuable ways to do so is by creating a blog post, or in other words, show notes for your episodes. So a show note can be written in a variety of ways, but I found that the more detailed, the better. Not to mention because Google likes longer type of blog posts. One thing that you can do within your show notes or your blog is to share an outline of the podcast episodes. And if you even take it up a notch a little bit, you can even have time codes where you outline specific topics that you are talking about within that particular episode. Another way that you can really provide more value to your show notes in your blog is to add any relevant links that you've mentioned in that particular episode. And this is to include any affiliate links that you have, because by doing so, this is creating the gateway to another opportunity for a stream of income. You can even create a Pinterest graphic, pin that on your Pinterest account, and then that drives traffic to your website, because Pinterest is also a search engine. Number 5, take your podcast into video. If you've been following me around, you've probably heard me say that video is a really great tool to help build that know, like, and trust, as well as a podcast. But really, it's also another way for you to put a face to the name and get a sense of how that person is. So it just really takes it up a notch, a couple of notches up, because now you have that facial expression, you've got that interaction that you don't fully get with just an audio format. That is not to discredit the audio format as is, because that would be totally contradicting myself and the purpose of this episode. A video will only add more value to the content that you are already putting out there. And there are a variety of ways that you can do this. One of them being taking your audio and adding a static image to the video, and then uploading that onto YouTube. That is the simplest way to do it. The downside to that is that you won't have that experience as if it were an actual talking head type of episode. Like if you're watching right now on YouTube, you'll see right here. However, there's another way that you can do it. You can just record it like a remote podcast. If you are doing interview type setting, or if it's an interview type of podcast, you can just record it, put that video up. You can also do a live stream and put that video up on YouTube and repurpose it that way. And depending on the platform that you're using, such as Podbean, which is the one that I use to host my own podcast, it will automatically connect to your YouTube channel and it will create a video file for your channel. So it's going to be with a static image, so you won't get this look of a talking head, but still you are now moving your podcast from audio to video in a very simple way that only just takes a couple of clicks. Remember, you don't have to start your podcast with this setup or even a much more complex setup than the one that I have. All you technically need is a microphone and a platform to upload it to. You can start with your phone. You don't need a fancy microphone. You don't need a fancy camera. You don't need a fancy light. If you choose to start with a video podcast, you just need a device that will record your audio and that will allow you to upload it to a particular podcast hosting platform. And that's it. And then start there and then move from there as you see fit. The thing with these equipment, the light, the expensive light, the camera, the expensive microphone, or just adding more gear to the overall production, is really to improve the overall listening and viewership experience. But again, you can build up to that. And that applies not just for a podcast. That applies for everything. When you're starting a photography business, you do not need the most expensive camera. You just need a camera to start photographing and then go from there. When you start your business, you don't need all the bells and whistles of the most amazing software or platform, CRM, whatever that is. You need just to take small steps, but continuous small steps that will then generate that big difference and that greater impact, which is what you really want to do. And then overall, it's going to help you build the life that you want. Because ultimately, why are we in business if we don't want to build a life that brings us purpose, joy, and allows for us to share our gifts with everybody else? And there you have it, 5 actions that you can take today to either start your podcast or to take your podcast up to the next level. Let me know in the comments what questions you have about podcasting, and I will see you on the next episode. Take care. Thanks for tuning in on another episode of the Focus and Bloom podcast. Be sure to leave us a review on iTunes so that we can continue creating more content like this. And go ahead and visit today's show notes at focusandbloomstudios.com/shownotes.